Okay, so in a previous video, we did form validation with htmx, which is showing the back end, serving the validation so that you don't have to duplicate your validation on the front end and the back end. So what I'm going to do today is Datastar version 1 just came out. I'm going to do two things. Three things. First, I'm going to replace the existing htmx implementation of this with Datastar. So just start from the htmx version. Second, I am going to switch Datastar to use SSE, switch our whole system to use SSE with Datastar, server sent events, rather than text HTML, which is what the htmx implementation uses. And third, I'm just going to show a little bit of the front end signals for validation also with Datastar at the end. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I've done here is I have duplicated our htmx completely. So you can see over here, we have this form still, but it's now using just a duplicated version of that. And I'm going to finish that duplication here by setting this to be the Datastar 1. Okay, so now and I added a little thing so we can tell we're in the right place. So it's now has all the htmx code. Everything's exactly the same. So it should work just like it did before. You can see must contain a Z. When you hit the Z, it checks off. Okay, this is all still using htmx. So let's go in and break it, right? So here we go. Here is the htmx include. Let's just delete that. And let's verify to make sure everything is functioning. Okay, so everything's broken, right? That's good. That's what we want. So now we're going to place Datastar in here, okay? So we have the include script from their website. I'll just put that right here. This still has Alpine in it. Not necessary. It wasn't even necessary for the htmx version. I just had included that because I was using an old version of base coat, which had the Alpine as a necessity. It no longer does. So anyway, it's still in there. It's not necessary. It's not used except for this little pop-up. That's the only time we are using it. So rather than rework it, I'm just keeping it in there. But not necessary for our form validation. Okay, so we have Datastar in here now. But we still have all of our, so okay, let's go. So this is just opens the form. Let's save this. And let's make sure that we're getting something here. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at our form here. So first of all, we do need to change all of these, all of our routes here. So I haven't done all this changing yet. I just wanted to kind of show that this is what I'm just swapping it one for one here with the htmx version. So I kept all these so we can see. Okay. So now let's refresh and verify everything's still broken. Okay, that's good. So we're not going to need any of this hx post stuff, right? We can just kind of get rid of that. Gone. So what do we need? Well, we're passing this version here. The htmx version is it's sending in a form, right? Now, Datastar, usually you don't need to sort of use a form. It doesn't, it's not part of the basic setup. So I think what I'm going to do here is get rid of our form and make this just a div. Okay. That would be kind of the preferred HTML or preferred Datastar way of doing things. Okay. And then instead of passing in stuff through a regular input, which we can do, but since we're not going to be submitting a form anymore, we probably want to set this as a signal. So we can data bind, which is the Datastar way of doing this, our csrf token. Okay, so we've done a data bind. That's going to be the name of the signal right there. Okay. So because we still want to pass that token when we do a post here. So everything else is going to be the same, our structure, the way we lay out the page and stuff like that. But down here, we can see we start to get to our, HX post stuff. So what's the equivalent of this? What are we going to be doing here? Instead of doing an HX post, now we can do we just set the trigger. So data on, and we're basically doing a key down, but let's do a debounce here. This is the format for doing a debounce, 200 milliseconds. And instead of just doing the route, we put the type of Datastar route that's going to, the method it's going to use to submit right here. Okay, so we're keeping the key up. We don't need to worry about the swap, all that stuff. Everything else should remain the same. Okay. Okay, so basically what we were doing before is we were having a single route that would validate this. Okay. So let's try that first of all. Okay, there we go. And we can see that it is submitting a post as expected, but we are getting an error. Okay, and a 419 error means like basically a CSRF issue. Okay, so we can see that payload includes the CSRF token, but it's not being submitted in the same way that it was with a form, right? It's being submitted in a different way. So since this is not a video on how to do CSRF, I think what I'm going to do is, okay, so this is maybe not the best way to do this, but I think that this should work. So we're going to send the CSRF header along with this particular request. Okay, so let's see, and the header is going to be the CSRF token. It's getting a little wacky with all these things here, but it does make sense here. Okay, okay, so let's see if that works, because what we're doing is we're now, instead of sending the full form like we were with htmx each time, we're just sending what's in this little post area. So there's probably a way to globally send this CSRF token, but I don't know exactly what that is, and rather than look it up right now, let's just try this. Okay, we're gonna try this again. Okay, good. So now we can see that, as we hit keys, we're getting status 200. It's returning something. Okay, so if you have a better way of doing that CSRF token for each post, feel free to throw it in the comments so other people can see it. Okay, so in doing our data on key down, the thing we did not do is do a data bind name. Okay, so we still need to say that this has a signal, this has a variable, this has a Datastar name. Okay, that means it's going to be sent along with these other signals. So we're no longer, I don't even know if we need this value, the request name or this name equals name here anymore, but we'll keep them. And let's now try it with our signal being sent. Okay, look at that. So that is super cool. So it already works. So all I've done is I've added, I switched the htmx data on key down. Used to be hx post and an hx trigger. Switched that to the data key down, added the CSRF token there, and then did data bind on the name. And just from that, we can see that the response that it's getting from the validate, it's already correctly doing the hx swap OOB, which is what it was before. Now it just finds this ID validated name and it places it into the form right here. So it basically, it doesn't need this hx swap OOB. The concept of Datastar is that it's matching up the IDs. So anything you send from the server, if it has the same ID in the DOM, it's going to replace it. And this is something that was not possible in the previous versions of Datastar because it expected a text or an event stream every time. So now with Datastar 1, you can do just text HTML responses. So you can see right here, all of these, if you look at the headers, these are text HTML, right? So it's the exact same as htmx, and that works very nicely, works perfectly. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of speed through updating all these other ones because this is all going to be exactly the same. We're going to data bind the name, and we are going to add this post. And it's the same post every time, actually, because we're always just posting to, this is how the htmx one worked. We just posted to the same one each time. Okay, so let me just go through these. So we basically have our social security number, we have our email, and we've got our create password, and we've got our confirm password. All of the concept is the same. We do our validate for each one. It sends all the signals. We'll just verify here that everything is passing through the network correctly and that I named everything correctly. I accidentally deleted the validate name. Okay, so let's take a look and make sure we have our social security. Okay, there's 8 digits. Let's make sure that it should be saying needs 9, which is correct. Now when I add 9, there it goes. Email format, correct. So all of these are getting passed, and that seems pretty good. Boom. There it is. So every single one of these validate things, the setup as it was with htmx works with this. Okay, now let's figure out the submit. So that's going to be the next kind of, when you actually want to create the account, how is it going to handle that? So we can scroll down to, first of all, our errors. This is one little piece of htmx that's still here. The purpose of this was to load this, hx trigger equals load, when you first get to the page. So if there are any errors, any validation errors, it will show them to you just in case, if you submit or if you refresh or something like that, then we want to show those errors also. So let's replace this. So instead of an hx post, we'll kind of do the data on again, and data on load. We can do, is it a get or a post? What were we using before? I think we were using a post. Yeah. So let's do post to the same place. So it's just exactly the same as all the other ones. We're posting to our validate. We can get rid of our hx trigger. We don't need a target because the server is going to determine where it goes based on which IDs it puts out there. Okay, so I think that should be the same. We can't really test that until we test this submit here. So one big difference is with our htmx version, we were doing a submit, and that was going up to our form tag up here, which I probably should have kept up there so that I could see where it was going to, but that's okay. So rather than doing that, we have now switched it with Datastar. We're not going to be submitting it as a regular form. We're going to put what it does directly into this button. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is this will be a click, right? So before it was a type submit. I don't know if I'm going to keep the, yeah, we'll keep the type submit, that's fine. But we're going to do data on click equals, we'll do a post again, but this time, we're actually creating the account. So let's see, let me think what we're going to post it to this page. So we could actually probably just leave it blank, but just to be more explicit. This page is Datastar-video. Okay, so we have that post. Now again, I'm going to do the headers thing. Okay, so now we're posting to this, and it is going to, notice that we haven't defined a scope of this, right? Previously, we were posting a form. So the form sort of contains within it all the inputs, all the scope is right there. There's no scope for this button, but it's going to work anyway because what it's doing is it's going to submit along with every single one of these Datastar requests, every signal on the page. And that's what these are doing too. These are all submitting. They're not just submitting, whatever you confirmed, whatever you bound right here. They're submitting every signal on the page, and that's exactly what this button is going to do also. So what it should do is submit, and let me refresh here. I'll just try to submit with nothing. We'll see what happens. Okay, so it's submitted. It's pending. Okay, remember I put a 3-second delay onto that, onto the submit, just so that we could kind of verify that it is, taking a minute so we can tell what it's actually doing. Also to test our little spinner, which we have not implemented yet for this version. Actually, let's do that before we do anything else. Let's put our spinner in. Okay, so how do we do this with Datastar? So let's see, we have our button here. It's got an ID type. Let's put the spinner stuff underneath over here. So we'll do data, and I think it's on, data indicator. So it's not, it's its own thing. This is like a new, this is its own attribute within here. So we'll do a data indicator, and what this is it just sets a variable name that lasts while this request is in flight. So data indicator. So while this request is in flight, we're going to set this fetching variable, and it's either true or false. And this, I just took this from the Datastar. Datastar, the new web page is really nice, and it's got this kind of cool pixel, but also kind of a very impressive space thing going on when you first go to it. But it also has a ton of examples. So this is where I got this. Data indicator is fetching. So that just sets the variable. The fetching is going to be either true or false. So now we have that variable, we can do cool stuff with it. For instance, data-attr-disabled equals, and then you call the variable with the $, fetching. Okay, so if I save this and I'm going to refresh, now when we create, see how it's disabled? I can't click it again. That is very useful. And when that request finishes, it will undisable. And actually, I should note that I contacted the creators of Datastar. There is a little, so this did finish, and unfortunately it's still disabled. And the reason for that is just because it's a text HTML, there's a little bug that it doesn't finish disabling. So that's something they said they were gonna update. So no worries on that. But let me just refresh and do the whole thing here. Oh, and our data on load also needs our headers here. So we're just putting the headers. You probably won't need to do this with all of the other ones. Okay, so now we have, if there's any validation errors, so I'm going to put in LAZ, that's fine. Now when I submit, okay, so making that data on load over here work just caused another issue. Now watch what happens. All of a sudden I can't click this button. So why would that happen? What I'm remembering is that in our errors, we also, with htmx, we were sending back the button. So we were controlling whether the button could be clicked or not. So in our errors array, or in our errors, not just array, but also in our snippet where we were validating, we were sending back a new version of the button based on what it was, whether it was valid or not. In the end, we didn't end up even making any change. I decided that's not a good way to do it, but I kept the code in there just to see it. We don't need this code anymore. We don't want the button to be replaced every time. If we did, we could make it work and add the Datastar thing, but it's just unnecessary. So I'm going to remove it. And now when I put that in there and create, you can see the button now works again. And it is keeping our validation up here after the submit. So one other thing that our htmx one had was this nice loading indicator, and we can bring that back right here. Let's just take a look at what it looks like. Okay, so now we only want that to show while the request is in flight, right? So again, we have this data attribute disabled fetching. So there's also a special attribute for adding or removing classes, right? So we can do data class equals, and then in here you do an array. So I'll do this here. You do an array of classes with their conditionals. So we'll say opacity 100, and I probably should put these in quotes, so they don't think they're variables. Oops, it needs to be actual quotes. You'll notice I'm doing the single quote here. It's because the JSON within an attribute needs to be valid JSON, which means double quotes. So I use the single quotes on the outside. Your editor or whatever you're using might sort of handle that differently, but that's how this needs to be handled. You need to have valid JSON. Okay, so we have our opacity, and that depends on the fetching variable. Okay, so let's update that and refresh. Oops, and I never changed this back to. This should have opacity 0 by default. Okay, and then when you click it, it should be disabled, and then it should also get the indicator. And there it goes. Okay, so now we have our spinner implemented just the same as we had it with htmx. So let me close our little network tab here and just go through this. We now have everything that we had before. We've made very minimal code changes. We've just sort of replaced the network layer of, these things here, data on load. So we've replaced every bit of htmx with the Datastar. Everything works exactly the same. Okay, so now part of Datastar is that it's not just the sort of network back and forth in the way that, the hypermedia controls. HTMX is kind of the hypermedia controls plus some additional tools. Datastar also does some other things. So let's start. Part of the issue that people have had with Datastar, and the difficulty that I myself have had with it, is that it uses by default the server-sent events, which is just not something I'm used to working with. That's the event stream response format. But let me show now how to implement this whole thing using the SSE. So it's going to be exactly the same as what's here, but instead of using the text HTML, which it now supports, I'll change my system to send back the event stream rather than the text HTML. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the controller, and I have already added, I did composer require. There's SDKs. And I did the PHP one, not the specific to Laravel, but the specific to PHP. There's SDKs for Datastar just to make the event stream stuff a little bit more straightforward. You can do SSE without any of the SDKs, no question. But there are, for different languages, people have created the SDKs just to make your life easier. So that's what I'm going to use here, is one of the SDKs. Okay, so back in our controller, first thing we do is we make sure we use that package, which I have done a composer require for. That's a PHP thing, but however you bring in packages, this is what you want to do. You want to bring the package in. And then in our validate code here. So right now we're doing this sends back text HTML, right? Let's see, maybe should we start with there or should we start? Yeah, okay, I think that's good to start there. Because we're going to use the server sent events when we first load the page. We just load HTML. That's fine. But when we do this, we're going to switch it to now use SSE when we do the validation. Okay. So we still create our validation errors just like before, and we're actually still going to create our HTML view just like before. But we're going to start off by creating an SSE object. So this is a new server sent event generator, and we'll send back those headers right away. So this is going to tell the browser expect SSE events. God, I keep doing SEE. There we go. Okay, so we still have our validation errors. We still get those. Now, instead of sending back this, we are going to make this our HTML. So HTML equals, right? Because that's what it's already doing. You know, this is maybe a Laravel specific thing, but we have these views. I use the scripting language. I use Blade as a templating language. However you get your HTML, you know, whatever you were returning before to htmx and to your normal setup, just set that to an HTML variable. And now we can use our object, the server sent event generator. And what they call it now in Datastar 1 is patch elements. So elements is kind of anything, any element in your DOM. And so we're sending HTML, and just as a reminder, the HTML we're sending is this errors one, which has all the different IDs. It's handling all of these over here, right? And, oops, where'd it go? So that's what we're getting back, just like we were sending it before. And before with htmx, we were using hxswap OOB. Now with Datastar, it's automatically replacing it based on the ID in the text HTML. Now we're going to the next level of Datastar, which is to convert it into a server sent event and using this patch elements to put all the HTML onto the page using the SSE. Okay, so let's just, you know, take a look at this before we go any further. So we refresh. Now I am going to inspect before I even check whether it's working or not. And we're getting some errors, so let's see what I did here. The server failed to respond with 500. Okay, so we're getting an error here. And let's see what did I do? Preview, internal server error, undefined constant app controllers. Okay, I guess, oh, God. Okay. You still need to write correct PHP code. Okay. So, and then our patch elements also needs to actually have the HTML in it. Okay. We're doing this live. We're doing this live, folks. Okay. So let's take a look. So now we have our thing actually did not error out, which is good. We're going to clear our network, and I'm going to type A. Okay, and it did a fetch event stream. Okay, so everything pretty much looks the same, but rather than getting our HTML back, text HTML, we receive this event stream. Type Datastar patch elements, div errors. You'll notice that it still worked. Everything is working. Okay, but every one of these validates is now sending back SSE, and that's it. Like, you know, there's no more steps to this. Datastar added support for text HTML. It treats it in a certain way. It does the patch automatically. But the way that the way they recommend the happy path for Datastar is to use SSE because it gives you a bunch of other powers. So right now we're just sending patch elements, patch HTML. We could be setting signals in here. We could be changing variables for your front end. So those signals that we have set up, you could do that. You could add those to your server sent event stream, and you could send those to the front end. So that's something you cannot do with htmx, at least not directly. They do actually have an SSE extension, but just as a core concept, the way that Datastar uses the SSE events, you can do a lot more. So that's why they kind of recommend using that. You can also do stuff like streaming, which I'm not going to show right now, but you know, you can keep that SSE connection open. I could do a while loop here, you know, or a for loop. I'm not going to do that right now, but I could send back a bunch of stuff, and it would, you know, update the page, stream to the page as it was being created. So you have a lot of options once you're using this. So that's why they kind of recommend it. So part of this is just to kind of get rid of some of the mystery around SSE. I have had not an easy time switching my mindset to use SSE for things because I'm so used to text HTML. But it's not hard. They make it easy, and it does give you some powers that you haven't had before. Okay, so just the last thing I'll do here is if we go back to our form here, Datastar handles, the sort of HTMX stuff, but it also handles what you would consider like Alpine stuff, like front-end signals and variables. So we could do some of our front-end validation with Datastar. I don't normally recommend front-end validation because you're just going to end up duplicating it anyway. So I think this little solution with using our back-end validation, so it feels like it's doing front-end validation, but it's actually checking with the server every time. That's one of the reasons I like this. But there are plenty of times where you just want to make things easy for your user, right? So you don't even want them to need to submit anything to the, to the front end. So let me show a quick way to do a front end kind of, confirm password. And this is a good opportunity to, you can immediately tell. You don't need to go to the back end to say whether your two passwords match, right? That's just convenience for your user to just show them right away. So let's set up a variable here that is going to be a computed variable, okay? A signal. I should use the word signal for Datastar stuff. I'm used to using the word variable, but okay, so data computed, and the name of it is right here, matched, right? So we want to see if we have these signals already. We have our create password and we have our confirm password. So let's set up just a variable that says whether they match or not. So that's pretty straightforward. We can use our confirm password equals create password, right? But it's a little more complicated than that because I only say that because we also don't want it to just match if it's empty, right? That's not quite correct. So let's also say that confirm password exists and it equals create password. Okay, so this is going to create our matched variable. Now, how do we use that variable? So let's create a local version of our little thing here first. I'm just going to add this local. All right, let's do a sanity check and make sure that these, we probably don't need another ID here because this is coming from the back end. We also don't need transition. That's just, okay, that's good enough. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. So let's do a little sanity check, make sure we're not getting any errors. Okay, so we have our must match and we have our must match local. So how do we set our must match local to show the same thing? Okay, so let's do our logic in our errors is, let's see, where's our confirm password? We show a check mark, so we want to basically match this logic. This is why I say there's some duplication if you try to do it in the front end, but we could just remove this if we want to. But basically, if there's something there and they don't match, then we make it red. Okay, so actually we'll just do a whole thing here, the whole span here. So data class, and we did this before. Oops, I gotta switch this to use the quotes right there to make it bold. So we'll make it font bold, just like on the back end, and text red 500. Okay. And we want this to happen when confirm password exists and it's not matched. Okay. So let's close that. Okay, so this span is going to have like these classes, and I should say, you can put a string in here, so I'm putting multiple classes in a single string. When confirm password and it's not matched. Does that make sense? So when there's a confirm password in there, it's not matched, the local one should also start working. Okay, so let's refresh. Okay, there we go. So we can see And you can see the slight delay there. The server one is just slightly slower. And part of the reason for that is that we do have a delay on the server one. We're putting a debounce, right? And that's intentional, so it's not actually potentially that much slower, but there is a network thing. It's probably, if we remove that debounce, actually, I'm going to remove that right now. Let's see what the difference is. So data on keydown. Okay, that's funny. What did I do here? Data on keydown.debounce. Oh, that's okay. So that's interesting, actually. Key down, it's sending it too quickly. So the signal is not actually set when you do the key down. Yeah, so it's sending the wrong value. The debounce actually was making it send the right value. If you want to send, it looks like the data bind is happening after. So the key down is, it's already sent this, and the data bind to confirm password has not updated it yet. So let's make this a key up. And refresh. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you can see that it's a network thing, so it's going to be just, and it's a key up thing, it's going to be slightly slower. So anyway, this is if you want immediate feedback, this is a good use for Datastar signals. Okay, so we have our password matched. We're not fully correct yet because we need it to match. So I'm going to put something in here, and I'm going to put something in here. So we can see that this one is correct, but our other one is not. So we have to add our logic here. So we can use another thing we have not used yet, which is data show. So you can guess what data show does based on a variable. We already have our matched computed variable defined up here. Data show based on that. So if we want to show, and what we're doing when it is matched is we've been doing the strike through, and we'll keep the same text here. We also have our, our handy little check mark, which I'm going to have to paste in here. Let's see if I can find a check mark quick. There we go. Okay, so we add our check mark, and then if data show is not matched, then we show the other one. Okay, and let's refresh and refresh, and let's verify that what we're getting here. Boom, as soon as we hit that, let's watch how fast that happens. And I'll get rid of this, we don't need this anymore. Doop, doop, doop. See how fast that front end one went? Okay, so I mean, this is the appeal of doing the front end signal stuff.